I am delighted to have written this editorial for the June 2021 issue of Critical Studies in Teaching and Learning. The issue includes 7 articles, 6 of which form pairs on a theme, and which are arranged in a sequence, which makes sense in terms of theme, structure and flow. A quick look at the titles of the papers brings to the fore the following themes and concerns: Inclusivity, Feminist Pedagogy, Colonialism, Practices of Decoloniality, Professional Identity, Knowledge Pluralism and Academic Success. I'll say a little more in a while on the contents of the individual articles, but first I wanted to think in slightly broader terms about the context in which this issue appears. The key themes of this issue bring into sharp relief the ongoing, entrenched and variable inequalities exposed and produced by the COVID-19 pandemic that has formed the terrible and terrifying background to our lives over the past 18 months. Writing this in the UK in June 2021, it has become so much more poignantly and profoundly apparent that humans, non-humans and nature are inextricably entwined. The spread of coronavirus has been shaped by the particularities of socio-economic structures of impoverishment and precarity, wealth and privilege, and the multiplicities of racism and sexism. These entangled conditions mean that some populations have suffered disproportionately, and their deaths feature disproportionately in the available figures. The virus has traversed the boundaries of nation states and human bodily boundaries. Its effects on economic productivity, welfare systems and educational institutions, schools, colleges and universities have been devastating. Like others across the globe, in the UK, the government has struggled to respond in a timely and effective manner. Vaccine production and distribution inequalities continue and, in some respects, demonstrate the ongoing effects of the slow violence of neo-colonialism and the particular injustices such formations, in their national and cultural specificities and differences, visit on the poor and the most vulnerable. The higher education institutions we work in are entangled within these broader socio-economic global pandemic conditions. Government guidance and university administrations have aimed to protect staff and students as much as they can by moving teaching online, closing campuses and facilitating home working. But of course, these conditions too are highly striated for different groups of academics. The constraints of home working fall most heavily on women. Not all students or staff have access to technology, and some callous HE institutions have taken the pandemic as an opportunity to restructure courses, close unprofitable departments, or make staff redundant. In these harsh conditions, the space of learning, the modes of learning and teaching, teacher-student relations, the aims and purposes of learning, the theories we take up to produce insights and understandings about learning and teaching, and how learning and teaching are deeply entangled with physical, mental and emotional well-being, take centre stage. The what, how, why and who of learning and teaching have become daily matters of concern to those of us who work in higher education. The question of how we shape more livable lives for our students and ourselves as academics in these ongoing times is a matter of everyday concern, and I've written about this recently in a chapter that I've written with Suzanne Gannon. It seems more than ever now that there is a need for higher education to provide spaces for affirmative alliances that call forth individual opportunities and collective social justice. These spaces must be spaces of criticality, creativity, and cooperative co-production, to offer the best chance to identify that which deepens and extends our capacities for flourishing at micro levels, and which might galvanise efforts towards necessary global change. This latter is a possibility we must not give up on, even while living in the ongoing and daily timescapes of ruinous capitalism, as Donna Haraway and Anand Singh have so recently talked about. To paraphrase Deborah Bird-Rose's comment on love, hope is awesome, hope is complex and full of problems and possibilities. The papers in this issue are tangled up in these considerations. While none of the papers deal directly with the pandemic, the critical thinking they provoke concerns the problems and possibilities of higher education in these profoundly difficult times. Their contents attend to subjectivity, power, relationality, ethics, and learning and teaching in contemporary neo-post-colonial times. The first article of the issue by Innocent Tinashe Mutero, Kaya Jean Mchunu, and Ivan Gunas Govenda is titled Sowing Friendship, Increasing Inclusivity through Creating Shared Social Spaces for Migrant and Local Populations in Durban. The article explores ways of contesting the growth of anti-immigrant and anti-refugee sentiments through critically engaged research. Grounded in a study of the Sowing collective through Subatho, Sowing for Africa, the article explores how activist-inflected participatory action research provide opportunities for refugees and marginalised local women to make connections and friendships with each other in a shared social space which is open and supportive enough to enable them to enact modes of transformational learning in a country which the authors characterise as mired with hate and exclusion of minorities. The article's social justice orientation is grounded in Bourgeois's 2006 conceptualisation of politically structured suffering, and proposes the need for addressing problems of xenophobia and social exclusion of immigrants and refugees through inclusive and creative placemaking practices in which polyvocal participation is enabled. As an exemplar of a successful university community engagement project, Thusabatho indicates the vital role higher education institutions can play in promoting citizen agency to improve women's lives in particular. In some respects, the second article in this issue aligns with the first, in addressing the problem of how the neoliberal academy might be more inclusive and responsive to the needs of the oppressed and marginalised, contextualised by the Fees Must Fall movement and moves to decolonise the curriculum. Palesa Zambaza's article titled Promises and Pitfalls of Feminist Pedagogy, a case of the University of the Witwatersrand, documents the learning journeys of second-year undergraduates taking a course in feminist theory. It poses the critical argument that feminist theory, while aligned with the project of critical pedagogy and orientated to liberatory ends, often fails to achieve these in any profound or enduring way. Zambaza provides a neat analysis of the respective tenets of critical pedagogy and feminist pedagogy, drawing out the latter's additional foci on the body within patriarchal formations. The author considers the ways in which feminist pedagogy fails to sufficiently address sexualities and disabilities, and argues that such things need to be taken into account in feminist, queer, intersectional theory. This small qualitative study adds nuance and empirical depth to arguments about ongoing legacies of curricular exclusion, in which questions about liberatory for who are still shaped by race, class, and power. The article suggests that feminist theory suffers from what the author terms reverse theoretical dysmorphia, in that its capacity to imagine and invoke change is profound, but its ability to change practice or praxis to effect that change is limited when it continues to operate within the confines of the university. The next two articles deal with coloniality and decoloniality. Like the article that precedes it, the paper by Thembelihe Brenda Makanya, titled The Phenomenology of Colonialism, Exploring Perspectives of Social Work Graduates in the African University, also takes its grounding from the Roads Must Fall and the Fees Must Fall movements. But this time, the article is propelled by an interrogation of the meaning of colonialism in South African universities for African students. Makanya argues the need for paying critical attention to colonialism as the historical context of the country, and the literature review is a condensed, concise summary of how colonialism has been both produced and can be critiqued, indeed must be critiqued. Makanya argues for taking up Afrocentricity as, in the author's words, a philosophical perspective associated with the discovery, location and actualization of African agency within the context of history and culture. This theoretical framework enables Makanya to focus on injustices and inequalities that have affected African students and to shift away from Eurocentric representations, discourses and ideas. The author makes the point that the category of African students is not essentialist. It is in fact extremely diverse, fluid and multidimensional, and entangled within the particularities of racist domination and colonial exploitation. The narratives of the social work graduates who took part in the empirical study give voice to the subtlety and systematic nature of the operations of white power and how this continues in the African university through Eurocentric indoctrination. Given the deeply embedded nature of colonialism, Makanya envisages emancipation through African voices as a powerful necessity. Sifiwe Dube's article, The Decoloniality of Being, Political Studies, Science, Legitimizing Another Way of Being, forms something of a companion piece to Makanya's. Taking a cue from Shoa's 219 point that African universities need to challenge ways of knowing or acting that perpetuate adherence to colonial thought through careful analysis of their own world. Dube focuses on decolonialization of the political science studies curriculum as a problematic for the discipline itself. This reframes decolonization as an ontological and epistemological project, which goes way beyond the often superficial changes to what is included in the curriculum, to include how the curriculum is experienced. The paper offers a theoretically engaged call to embrace the process of coming to know who we are and what we can become through our engagement in learning as an entangled relation with power. Dube interrogates the continued lack of engagement with African perspectives especially Black political thought, in the HE curriculum in South Africa. The author assembles a rich interdisciplinary analytical lens that draws on the works of Sylvia Wynter, Barnett, Maton, Maldonado Torres and Goes to argue the need to challenge epistemological ethnocentrism. The curriculum transformation required, Dubé suggests, is for a curriculum that is responsible and responsive, and that, in quotes, takes seriously the ethical call for epistemological redress and justice, which recognises that knowledge production is both constitutive of and constituted by context. Next in the issue are two articles that, in different ways, address professionalism in higher education. Gabrielle Nudelman's article focuses on professional identity and is titled Using Agential Morphogenesis to Track Professional Identity Development in Higher Education, while Tone Dahl Mitchelson, Elizabeth Ann Kinsella and Karen Sin Groven's paper is concerned with professional knowledge toward an inclusive evidence-based practice model, embracing a broader conception of professional knowledge in healthcare and healthcare higher education. In the first of these articles, Nudelman takes up Margaret Archer's agential morphogenesis to consider how students' identities change during professional degree programmes. Situated in relation to the growing emphasis on employability in higher education, Nudelman's paper focuses on the challenge of retention in the workforce in engineering following graduation. The article offers a useful synthesis of studies of professional identity development and supplements this with an empirical qualitative study which provides narratives of two students' identity transformations during their studies. The advantage of using Archer's morphogenesis is that it enables structure, culture, and agency to be considered independently to understand how each develops over time, and it brings these three dimensions together to explain how they impinge on one another. This framework produces a detailed understanding of specific factors that enable and constrain students' professional identity development. And these insights will be of value to curriculum designers, higher education lecturers, and career counsellors, both within and beyond the discipline of engineering. The evidence-based practice model proposed by Dahl Mitchelson and colleagues is distinctive in being both more inclusive and in offering a broader conception of professional knowledge in healthcare and healthcare higher education than models in current use. Acknowledging the contestations and conflicting logics of evidence-based practice, the authors contend the need to include ethics in EBP and a more pluralistic understanding of professional knowledge in healthcare and healthcare educational programmes. With regard to ethics, they try to navigate a space between centering evidence and centering people, proposing that ethical insights drawn from patient-centered medicine can widen the frame of EBP to include a more humanistic, biopsychosocial perspective that includes ethical values, care ethics, and theories of shared decision-making. With regard to knowledge, they assess the various modes of knowledge in EBP, including experience-based knowledge, clinical expertise, and theoretical knowledge. Drawing on Aristotle's categories of episteme, techne, and phronesis, they suggest what can be gained by moving towards more polyphonic modes of knowing. The new model of inclusive evidence-based practice they propose is subtly and comprehensively argued and the arguments that the model will improve practice are cogently made. Omar El Moussa, Runa Algazo and Maura Pilotti's article, Data-Driven Predictions of Academic Success Among College Students in Saudi Arabia, is the final article in this issue. Their study explores the extent to which gender, high school grade point average, and the GAT, which is equivalent to the SAT-1, can predict GPA at graduation. I found the context of the study particularly interesting. Its setting was a Saudi Arabian university that follows a USA general education curriculum. Saudi Arabia is a society in transition. Studies, such as this one, which provide comparative data on female and male graduates, can help to trace the ways in which, as well as the extent, higher education in Saudi Arabia is shifting from a rigid patriarchal system to one that is more gender equitable. The study disclosed tensions between predictive data on admissions and success factors and curricula and pedagogy, which are foreign, i.e. non-Saudi in origin and scope. The authors note that, across almost all of the measurements examined, female students tend to outperform male students. This leads the authors to suggest that the lower performance of male students might be the accidental outcome of the gender equity policies introduced in academia, while noting the gender-based differences that continue to shape access to disciplines such as engineering, business, and law. So those are the 7 articles which comprise this particular issue. I enjoyed reading the articles immensely. I learned a lot and came into contact with many new theorists and with theories. The articles' critical insights on knowledge, power, inclusion, gender, race, and neo-post-colonialism in higher education resonate with each other across the issue and resonate with me personally in the thinking that I'm currently doing around whiteness, gender, memory, and belonging. It has been a pleasure to work with Daniela Gachago, the journal's editorial manager, on assembling this issue, with Professor Viv Bozalek, who steers Crystal in her role as editor-in-chief, and with the broader editorial board. I hope you will enjoy reading the issue as much as I did. Thank you. Bye.